So, it's Halloween. Well, not exactly Halloween, it's October, which is the month of Halloween, which means a lot of people are doing scary stuff. And so I figured I could make a scary YouTube video for October. And you might be wondering, what does this video entail? Will I be going to like a haunted house? Am I going to be doing something spooky, like reviewing a, horror movie? Well, you're sort of right on the second part. I'm not watching a horror movie. I'm watching this. So, you might be wondering why I'm making this video. Well, it's a bit of a long story. I've been a Spider-Man fan for most of my life. And like many Spider-Man fans, I went to the theaters to see Spider-Man Far From Home. I don't exactly remember what I thought of it at the time, but what I do remember is that my twin brother did not like the movie. And in fact, he didn't like it so much that he would barge into my room at night and just complain about it to me as I was trying to go to bed. So imagine me asleep on this bed right here, and imagine him sitting sort of on the corner where the camera currently is right now, and just complaining so much about the movie. Needless to say, that filled me with a lot of a dislike for and I love my brother. I just want to get to better. I don't blame him for not liking a movie and venting it out toward me instead of the internet, but I think because of that I developed a bit of a dislike for MCU Spidey, and also just sort of again just another dislike for the movie as well, and ever since then I haven't actually seen it. But it's been 5 years since, and I like to think that over time my perception and understanding of comic book storytelling and just how this whole industry works in general has changed. I saw No Way Home opening day, loved it. I saw the Spider-Verse movies, also loved it. And I actually read a Spider-Man comic, and not just any Spider-Man comic, the classic Lee and Ditko run, the very first run that started it all. So now I'm thinking, it's been 5 years since, and I wonder if, as my tastes have changed, my opinion of this movie has. And, hence the video where I watch a movie that I've been scared to see since 2021 or 2019. I don't know when the Far From Home came out. I'll put in the description, or no, I'll put it in the title card here. This is gonna be a little title here. But yeah, so after this, I'm going to be watching the movie, and when I come back, I will just go off the cuff on whatever I thought about it. No script, no notes, just raw, off the dome, what I think of Spider-Man Far From Home 5 years later. And yeah, should be excited. I'm a little nervous and scared, hence the idea of making this video on October during the month of scary stuff. So yeah, and I'll go watch it right now, and wish me luck. Okay, I am back. In case you're wondering, I changed my outfit just because I didn't like it before, but rest assured, same day. I just got back from seeing Spider-Man Far From Home, and I feel healed. Shout out to High Top Films. No, but seriously, oh my god. I like it now. Oh man, I really like Spider-Man Far From Home. I honestly think, I just got back, so the high is sort of there from watching a Spider-Man movie. I'm sure it's gonna go down eventually in the coming days, but for now, on the record, I think Spider-Man Far From Home is, as of now, one of my favorite Spider-Man films of all time. Which I know it's a bit of exaggeration, and it's not that I'm not saying the film is perfect in every way. There's flaws. There's a lot of flaws. But I think that the film is better than I thought it was going to be, and yeah, I'm just gonna sort of explain why. I think what's sort of interesting about watching Far From Home now is that I'm not exposed to a lot of the online discourse, especially around like Twitter, where a lot of people are like, oh, the Spider-Man Far From Home film sucks because it doesn't have pure-facing consequences, you know, it's not a true Spider-Man story. That part also had an impact on how I view the movie back then, but now that we're well beyond that sort of idea. We're well beyond what most of the people on the internet think is the ideal Spider-Man story, that this movie now is taking, I think, a sort of a different light. I gotta start talking about what I like about the movie now. Oh my god. Okay. First of all, you know, I thought it was the action was awesome. Like, I think in terms of going from Homecoming to Far From Home, there was a huge step up in the scale, in the presentation, in the choreography, in the sort of stakes of the fight scenes, I guess. I don't know how to say it correctly, but the point is, the action is really well done. Even when it's like CG, I think it was used pretty well. I like that. I actually connected a bit more with the Peter's struggle in this movie more than I did before, because I'm not focused on the Iron Boy Jr. of it all, because yeah, Tony Stark is kind of a complicated man. Although actually, no, that actually leads to one of my flaws we'll talk about later. When it comes to, I guess, on a rewatch, this movie's plot is fine. It doesn't really have any, no, it does have super distracting. You know, I'm keep veering into its flaws for some reason. I want to focus on the positives. The music's great, action's great, acting is also great. Acting, speaking of, Tom Holland is perfect as Spider-Man, you know, obviously. Every actor brings their own version of Spider-Man to the screen. Tobey Maguire, he was really good at making you believe that a 30-year-old could be a 17-year-old. And Andrew Garfield brought a sort of manic genius element to it, which might seem like cliched and tired nowadays, but for me, it was just sort of, it was a side of Spider-Man that I hadn't seen, because you gotta keep in mind, I didn't start reading Spider-Man comics until like this year, 2024. My only exposure to Spider-Man was from his adaptations, the 90s cartoon, the movies, Spectacular Spider-Man, video games. For me, Andrew's take on the character was completely new to me. Also, side note, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, the first The Amazing Spider-Man movie, is the only Spider-Man movie to have come out on my birthday. No other Spider-Man film has come out on my birthday except for The Amazing Spider-Man 1. But no, Spider-Man Far From Home has a pretty solid, I think the character is pretty solid. I think with a couple of exceptions. I thought Happy, I thought I would get annoyed by Happy, but I really didn't. He ended up being really, I guess, a neat character in the end. He didn't offend me, he didn't make me mad, at the same time, I was kind of rooting for him to, you know, make it through by the end of the film and get with MA. Oh my god, no, that's so awkward. I gotta like, this is why I should have the script. No, I committed to this. I will stick to it. Quentin Beck was a really good villain. Like, I really liked the way Jake Gyllenhaal played him, because initially he was very, you know, kind, very sensitive, very like a superhero, and then that that switch in the middle where they reveal him as a villain is really well done, and everything from it is actually really cool, and it actually helped me clear up a bit about Quentin Beck's plan, because I had forgotten about how the plan supposedly work, but now that I know the plan works, I gotta say it's actually kind of a cool plan, and yeah, that's really all I can say. Like, I like the movie, I like the action, I like the characters, I like the plot. I mean, yeah, I guess that's it for the positive. I guess the music was good. The thing about MCU music nowadays that it's kind of easy to sort of forget, except for like some themes, like the Spider-Man theme, which they do play, like do 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 do, and also like the Avengers theme, because that played all the time in this movie. Like the Avengers theme played a lot of times. I want to drink water right now. I want to cut this. Anyway, the Avengers theme played so many times in this movie. Like, it was genuinely insane. Like, I get it. It's an epilogue to Phase 3 and all that. Far From Home is technically like an epilogue to Phase 3. It's like a transition from Phase 3 to Phase 4. So it's sort of supposed to be like, I guess, homaging certain imagery and stuff. Especially since the movie, I think, came out like a year after Endgame. I don't know. But it was like the next movie after Endgame. And speaking of, I want to get into a little bit of the sort of specifics. And this is the part where I'm going to blend a lot of my positive takes with my negative takes. But I think this sort of helped me sort of encapsulate sort of what I felt about watching this movie. I think that the beginning scene, I've gone a little bit okay with it. I still think it's a little bit ridiculous. Although I think I like the commentary from one of the kids at the morning announcement. Like, this game sucks, man. You know, I had to take my younger brother's like older than me. It's crazy. The high school segments were fine. It's actually really funny. So the thing about this movie is that it leans a lot more into the high school humor of the genre of movie, I guess. I don't know what to call it. And I think some of it works, but some of it also goes on a little bit too long. Like, I think, just off the top of my head, I think the worst joke, high school related joke, is, I think it has to be I don't know what to call it, the scene where Nick Fury's telling Peter as Peter's brushing his teeth in the hotel, he's telling Peter about the plan. He keeps trying to exposit the plan, but he gets interrupted by all like high school people. He gets interrupted by teachers, get interrupted by Betty, and he gets interrupted by, I think, one of the other teachers. And I think some of those jokes got a little annoying. And that's something that's sort of, I guess, what do you call it, a symptom of the MCU, with how they try to inject a lot of humor into stuff to be like, hey, you know, isn't this crazy that we're making a film about superheroes? I mean, they're pretty crazy. And I think that sort of reared a little bit of its ugly head here. But it's actually interesting. The first beginning of the movie, the high school segments, the pure high school, before the trip starts, I think were kind of weak because they had to go through a lot of things fast. They have to establish that Peter's secretly in love with MJ. They have to establish that Peter has a plan, a 3-step plan to go to Europe on this Europe trip to make a huge move to win her heart. You can tell how much I'm talking, how much I'm going off like the rails here. He's talking about, the movie also has established Peter wanting to not be called the next Iron Man, just be Spider-Man, but then you also have like the whole thing. They have established a lot, and I feel like that section is very weak because it moves by really fast. And they also have to establish that the spider sense isn't working. By the way, I was fine with them calling it the Peter Tingle in Far From Home, but they call it the Peter Tingle in No Way Home, and they don't ever call it Spider Sense. I know that's a really minor problem to have, but you had the perfect opportunity to call it the Spider Sense there, and you didn't. Anyway, enough about Spider-Man. Let's talk about Spider-Man. But after the trip starts, the movie actually starts to pace a bit better. I think the movie starts pacing is better after the trip starts. And speaking of the trip, I gotta say, I'm actually a really big fan of this movie taking Peter out of New York and into like Europe, because, you know, Spider-Man films have always been filmed in New York, sort of. I think some are filmed in Atlanta or something, I don't know, but Spider-Man's always been associated with New York, but we never seen a movie or like I've never seen a Spider-Man movie where he's out of New York. And I think that's part of the fun of the MCU Spider-Man trilogy as a whole, is that it tells stories that haven't been told before in live action. That makes it unique, that makes it stand out. You can't fault them for trying, honestly. I will say the biggest flaw that I can say right now, one of the biggest flaws, is that I think Peter and MJ, their romance in the film wasn't well set up. I mean, it wasn't well set up because you're talking about a film that opens with the thing in Mexico, and then it cuts to Peter being like, okay, Ned, so I'm going to establish right now that I have a 3-step plan to get MJ to love me, who I've secretly had a crush on this entire time, even though we're just totally going to ignore the fact that Homecoming happened. Although I guess you can technically say that high school is about like moving fast and stuff, so maybe in between films Peter eventually like started liking MJ. But I just don't think there wasn't enough established there to get me to care about them. Like, the chemistry is fantastic. Zendaya and Tom Holland are like, oh my god, just they do bounce off each other really well, and all that, but nothing will top Peter and Gwen in the Amazing Spider-Man films, because they had, I mean, come on, no offense to Raimi films, Peter and MJ, but like, come on, what are we doing here? Just tell me what I want to hear. I think we should just stay friends. Okay, what else? I think Edith. That's probably my personal biggest problem with the film. So Tony Stark gives Peter a pair of glasses that is connected to a defense satellite with a bunch of drones in it and all the protocols. He gives it to Peter. It's something that I don't think a lot of people really comment on. I think Tony Stark is a very weird character for me in the MCU because he's charismatic, he's fun. I like the first Iron Man movie. He's played by Robert Downey Jr. There isn't really anything I dislike about that. I like him. It's just that in Spider-Man Homecoming, he gives Peter a suit that has an instant kill mode. And, you know, even without the training wheels protocol, he still gave it to the suit like base. It's baked in the suit. A instant kill mode. He baked it into the suit he was going to give to a teenager. And then in this movie, he gives glasses to a teenager that has access to a defense satellite army that shoots. He nearly kills Brad on accident because of it. I mean, am I crazy for thinking that maybe Tony Stark at this point, whatever point in time he used to make that thing, shouldn't have made that? Like, I guess he was obsessed with making Iron Man armor at a certain point, but like, you didn't have to give the kid a military. He gave him a death army. Anyway, all just to say that Tony Stark is a very complicated character, and I don't think it's for the better, even after he's dead. Even dead, he's the worst. And that's what we call it. Sure. Oh, also Nick Fury and Maria Hill were not very good in this movie. I think they were I think it's really funny that at the end they were revealed to be Strolls, because I think that does explain a lot of why they didn't immediately like clock that Quentin Beck was bullshitting them. But I think it's really funny that they believed him, I think in Venice, and then they started not super believing him. They only started not believing him until after like Happy gave his coded message, which is really funny. Because I think the coded message, I thought it was this whole gag where Nick Fury wasn't going to get it and turn off, but I think he did, sort of. So I think that's actually really fun. I just really need a short film of Nick Fury just grilling the crap out of them for, like, not running super intense background checks on Quentin Beck the first time you met him, just going off of his word. Like, that's ridiculous that they let that slip by. Oh, and speaking of background checks, I think the backstory of Mysterio and his whole, like, crew, I actually get it now. I think it's really funny because I thought initially that Quentin Beck made the holographic device for as a grieving thing, but no, it's really funny because in the film he actually wanted to use it for other stuff. I don't know what exactly it's implied to be. I think it's implied to be used for like military purposes or something. But then Tony repurposed it for like a grieving thing, which is actually pretty Tony of him. Not gonna lie, it wasn't just that he called this thing barf; it was that he used it not for its full purpose. I used to be sort of under the belief that the only type of Spider-Man story you can tell is the type of story where Peter's life and Spider-Man's life are like a pendulum. You know, one swings one way, one swings the other way. For one to succeed, the other one must not succeed, and vice versa. And I thought the ideal Spider-Man story would be about balancing the two. But you know, over the years, like I mentioned in the intro and the before segment, I read more Spider-Man stories. I saw the Spider-Verse movies. I saw No Way Home. I even read the classic Spider-Man stories. Then reading the current Ultimate Spider-Man run, it just sort of hit me. That's very restrictive to sort of limit yourself to those kind of Spider-Man stories. Like, obviously, the best kind of Spider-Man story, the ones that I like, or the ones that do the most popular or whatever, are the ones where Peter's and Spider-Man's world collide. But one doesn't necessarily have to suffer for the other to work. Like, both can work in tandem with each other. You can also just do new stuff. Like, that's something that I think a lot of people sort of need to hear. Because for the longest time, the Raimi films, I love them. They defined so much about how to do Spider-Man on film. But I think a lot of people hold them up to a higher pedestal than they ought to have. Like, they were good, very good, and they might as well have started the superhero craze. But for me, those are things to learn from, not take verbatim from. Like, you don't have to have a Spider-Man film or story be successful because it's Peter struggling as Spider-Man. You can tell a Spider-Man story about virtually anything. If you understand the character and truly love it, you should be able to tell any Spider-Man story and any story with Spider-Man in it, and people will love it. Hell, I just mentioned before, the new Ultimate Spider-Man run, Peter Parker he's not the same Peter Parker from like the main universe. He's not like a guilt-ridden man-child who has a responsibility that he sticks to horrifically at this point. He's a grown man in his 30s with a family, and he becomes Spider-Man not out of like responsibility, but because he's going through a midlife crisis. And that's very interesting to me, because he's not someone who went through a tragedy of losing his uncle. He went through a tragedy that he didn't even realize was a tragedy until he got told him that it was a tragedy. Like, his aunt dies. Anyway, I'm exaggerating. I'm getting off topic. Point is, there are more Spider-Man stories you can tell beyond the Raimi films, and I wish I appreciated that idea sooner 5 years ago. So, all's in say, I think I really like this movie. I apologize for the rambling I went on. I love the character, but I'm really, really bad at articulating why that is. I'm just going to read Radiant Black. I don't know if you know this. I'm reading Radiant Black right now. Really good comic book series. Not Marvel, not DC. It's its own thing. It's really cool. You can find it at your local comic book store, or you can find it online at Amazon. I still recommend going to a comic book store just for the experience and all that. And that's it. I'm something of a Spider-Man fan myself. That was so bad.